No, it was going to be as many albums as possible, to my mind. I thought I was probably going to end my career that way. I wanted to make that album pretty desperately because I felt that we had quit too soon before. After all, we had only done 2 studio albums and 1 live album, and that was the end of the band, and we had so much more to offer. Then, of course, 12 years went by, and we had the opportunity to get back together again, and I thought it was going to last, but the situation was wrong. Each person had a manager. No one was making any decisions. There was never a yes or a no. I think, I was afraid to say, no, we shouldn't do that, because then I'm going to be accused, as always, of being a dictator or Hitler or whatever they accuse me of being. But, like in any situation, there has to be someone who says yes and no. That's just the way the world has to be run. I'm sorry. Someone has to make a decision, and there were none being made. And when there were decisions being made, I felt they were the wrong ones, such as the reason why I left that band, and that was that I was told that we would be Ozzy Osbourne's opening act in Los Angeles. We had already had a show booked in Los Angeles for ourselves, and that got changed, and I disagreed and said, no, I won't do that. I absolutely refuse to do it. That's not why I quit my own band, to be the opening act for your ex-lead singer. I won't do it, plus the fact that I know that you're going to announce that there's going to be a reunion of Black Sabbath featuring Ozzy Osbourne. And they said, no, that will never happen. Well, I said, well, it doesn't matter to me because I'm not doing the show. I don't believe in it for the reason I first said, which was that I did not stop and quit and leave the people that I believed in behind me so that I could be the opening act for your ex-lead singer. And so they got Rob Halford to do that particular show, only that show. We did all the rest of the touring right up to that point, never communicated with it, never talked about it, and that was it for me. There was never any I'm quitting or you're fired. It was just over. We finished our show in San Francisco, and I looked around, and I was the only one still on the stage, and everybody else had gone, got into the bus, and left, and that was it. And I would do it again today. It was the wrong thing to do, and as I said before, the nights they did the shows, they announced that they were going to reunite with Ozzy Osbourne, and they were going to do a tour. So I was right all the way down the line, and I wasn't about to be the fool or the scapegoat for their opportunity to get back together again. So those are the reasons that I was no longer in the band.
So you've done a comeback with your band Dio. You've done a comeback with Black Sabbath. Last year, Ritchie Blackmore did a comeback with Rainbow. Would you ever consider to join Rainbow if you had the offer now?
No, we don't make the same kind of music. Ritchie, I'm an experimenter. I like to try different things. I think this album will show that. This is a very different album for us, a very much more modern album than the other things we've done before. But Ritchie continually seems to make the same album to me, seems to be searching for what he had when he let go of the best thing he probably ever had, and that was the first band with Jimmy and myself, or Bob Daisley, or Cozy and Tony Carey. He seems to be continually trying to make that same kind of music, and I'm not having to go at Ritchie for it. Good for him. Whatever he wants to do, he needs to do. But for my own sake, I need to experiment. I need to take steps forward and not to take steps backward or to remain in place. So I don't think it ever could possibly work. I never close the door to it. There's always there's always a chance that something like that could happen. In fact, we're doing some shows together in America in November with Rainbow and Dio. So if that means anything at all, it means that Ritchie and I don't hate each other. And I never have hated Ritchie, and I know he's never hated me. We've always had nothing but good things or nothing at all to say about each other. It's never been a problem. I think, people have created that they felt that, that with Rainbow it was a matter of 2 egos that couldn't work together. And that's not true at all. If that were the case, I wouldn't have lasted 10 seconds in that band, because I've always buried my whatever ego people think I have so that I can survive and deal with the people I'm with. Sabbath had some pretty big egos too, and I always have had to suppress my own feelings because I wanted my situations to work. Ego is not a problem for me. What is a problem for me is what's right and wrong in music. And if things are wrong, then I don't function very well in them, and I won't be in them anymore. But musically, I just think that we're too far apart. Again, I try to be an innovator as much as I can within the traditional bounds that heavy metal, the kind of heavy metal I make, has allowed me. And Ritchie has not taken those steps forward, so I could never see myself going back to doing that again. I just don't want to rewrite Rainbow Rising or Long Live Rock and Roll or whatever. I don't want to do that again. But, as I say, I don't close the door. If Ritchie was willing to make some changes and the circumstances were right, I perhaps might consider it. But at this particular point, I'm never going to find a band as good as, or a guitar player as good as the one I'm playing with now, or one who makes me happier, that's for sure. So I'm very happy with the band I have.
Okay. When you're doing the shows with the Rainbow, I guess a lot of fans would like you to see on stage with Rainbow for a couple of tracks.
Yeah.
Do you think that will happen?
Stig, I don't think that's ever going to happen either, May. No, I don't think so. I mean, we're not getting together to do these shows so that we can, please people by teasing them with, my singing with him or his playing with me. No, we'll just carry on and do what we have to do. It's really not something that I've given any thought to, and I'm sure, I assume that Ritchie hasn't, but no, that's not what we're going to do. I'm not going to play with him, he's not going to play with me.
Okay. On your new album, you brought along your old drummer, Vinny Appice. Jeff Pilson plays the bass guitar. Have you stolen him from Dokken, or is it just a guest musician on the album?
No, he still has his commitment to Dokken because of the album deals that they signed. But he's still playing with us, and hopefully he'll be on the road with us as well. It's a difficult thing to do to have to divide yourself up like that, but then again, we're a band who plays a lot and likes to play, and Dokken seem to have a lot of internal problems within themselves, and always have between Don and George. And I just see it seems very impossible to me that they're going to survive under those conditions. So I wouldn't expect that there would even be another Dokken album after this one. Although I'm not trying to predict that, and I'm not trying to be negative about it, but I just see the world for what it is. How can you possibly be happy, and how can you possibly make good music if people hate each other inside of a band? I just don't see how it could possibly happen. But at this particular point, Jeff is in our band and has plans to tour with us. So it's going to be the same.
Who's your guitar player, Tracy G?
He played actually with Jimmy Bain and Vinny in a band called World War III. That's where we got Tracy from. Of course, this is the second album that Tracy has done with us. This is second album for this band. So, and as we said, it's been 3 years between the last album and this one. So we've been together for about 5 years, really. I have there are no plans for anybody to be in this band but Tracy. Tracy, as I say, came from the band World War III, and he was suggested to me by Vinny, who said, "We're looking for a guitar player. You've got to listen to this guy because he's everything you're looking for." Well, I'm a kind of a doubting Thomas, and I have to believe these things when I see them. And Tracy came and auditioned for us, and he was absolutely right. His kid is great. He's like all the best guitar players on earth, and probably better. He's like my favorite guitar player, Tony Iommi. He has riffs everywhere. He's got an incredible sound and knows how to get his sound. But he plays very modernly, and he plays with passion, with classical feel. He's very aware, and he's just the nicest person that I know. He thinks exactly like all the rest of us do in the band. Where our communication level is incredible. I'm just never been happy playing with a guitar player than I've been with Tracy.
In the 80s, the keyboards used to be a part of Dio's music.
Yes.
Where are the keyboards now?
Well, we still have a keyboard player, but we very sparingly use keyboards on our albums. When we first started in Holy Diver, we were always a bass guitar, drums, and vocal band, and the keyboards that were played on the very first album were played by myself and by Jimmy, and the only things that were played were just the little solo in Rainbow in the Dark, the little melody thing that kind of carried the song, and the beginning of Holy Diver. Aside from that, there were really no keyboards at all. And then we started to bring a keyboard player in to do the things that you have to do live. I've always found, from listening to Purple as long as I did, and from being in Rainbow as long as I was, that keyboards make a great difference in a live situation. If the guitar player is going to play a solo, and everything certainly drops out when that rhythm guitar player is gone. So we used keyboards in that way, and then we started to use keyboards and really include the keyboard player in our band, and that was Claude Schnell at the time. And the keyboards just started to get in the way. I mean, they just started to be so destructive to the band that we had to get rid of them. But the best keyboard work I thought that was done for this band was done by a Swede named Jens Johansson, who played with Yngwie for quite a long time. He played with us on the Lock Up the Wolves album, and he was great because he's a very modern player, very far-reaching player, a lot of jazz tools, just the quickest player, keyboard player I've ever heard, and just a great all-around player. And the way we used him was a lot different than we used any other keyboard player. He became more of a soloist than anything else. But still, keyboards, I found all the time, whenever you use them on a record, they soften everything that you do. They take all the edges away, and rock and roll is a collection of edges to me. So on this album, aside from a few obvious things that we use, which is that kind of neoclassical part in a song called Stay Out of My Mind, we generally stayed away from the keyboards. There are a few little parts, but not very many, because it is the band that we always were and the band that we always wanted to be. So this time, again, we'll use keyboards live, but only sparingly. But then again, there are some songs, as I mentioned before, that we use keyboards with that we will be performing on stage that are necessary, you know, whether it be Holy Diver or whatever songs from the past. So there is still a keyboard included, but not with what we want to present from a record standpoint.
You mentioned that your new album sounds very modern. Is that a natural progression for you when you're writing songs?
Yes, I think it is. I think it's a much more natural progression for me. Again, I've never wanted to stay in one place. Unfortunately, I have at times. At times, I think we've created and recorded the same album a few times. We gave it a different name, but they became very static. And I think, you know, that's a trap that one can fall into very easily.